ਇਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਚਾਚੇ ਦੇ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਬੈਟ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ so
thank you so much sir
thank you for staying engaged we really appreciate it this bat is from Kinetic Sports $350 worth and what do you think
man first of all thank you so much thanks to Kinetic Sports as well and I'm just glad that I commented to be honest I wasn't obviously I wasn't sure if I was going to win or no I needed a new bat for the season anyway so that's $350 saved yeah. And Malik I know they're huge at the moment because we have a guy in our club who had a Malik bat last year and he ended up scoring like a lot of runs so hopefully I could do the same
no we really hope and wish you scored a lot of runs as well keep Kinetic Sports in mind when you do score the runs congratulations Waqar Ahmed for scoring the first double hundred of the year 23 fours and 11 sixers bande ki shakal dekh ke dar lag raha hai ki he is gonna just smash you congratulations buddy thank you all for tuning in to CricChat today we have Saad Khan from CanAsia we're going to have a quick conversation with him welcome Saad bhai
thank you very much nice to be here
pehli to mujhe ye batayein ki ye koi bogus bat hai ki is it scam what is it can you tell me about this bat
No, this doesn't look like a scam bat. Actually, when I entered the room, this was what my eyes immediately went towards. I really like this bat.
Yeah,
because you can see the number of grains that are here and how well they're compacted against one another. So that tells me it's actually a pretty good bat.
Played a little bit of cricket in Qatar before coming here. So can we talk about that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So born in Pakistan, but I moved to Qatar when I was about a year old. So Qatar was my first real home. And I started playing cricket when I was like 3 years old. Being Pakistani, living in the Middle East, that's one of the most prominent sports that any Pakistani plays. And so what ended up happening was I used to play a lot of cricket in Qatar. And it became so important to me that I actually started playing some hardball cricket. And when I started playing hardball cricket, I started to climb the ladder in the Qatar cricket leagues quite quickly within my age group. So overall in Qatar, I lived there for 17 years, and I've played nationally for Qatar's under 16, under 17, and under 19 teams. And I've toured with all 3 teams to different places. But that was mainly between the years of 2006 to 2012.
Okay.
Around that time. So I was balancing schools with my cricket. It was a fun time in my life, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ask you some of the players that you played against. But before I do that, I'm also a lefty.
Sure.
Right? So growing up, jaise aapne mentioned kiya, you're always playing cricket, growing in Pakistani household. When you're playing tape ball, most of the time, tape ball mein kya hota hai ki bhai, ek side ki unhone na khatam ki hoti hai boundary. So if you end up hitting that side, you're out.
Of course.
So
गली क्रिकेट में यही होता है.
So what happened?
Well, thankfully कतर में जहाँ पे हम लोग क्रिकेट खेलते थे, हमारी कम्युनिटी थी पाकिस्तानी की, वहाँ पे एक बहुत बड़ा, आप सोचें, it was a very large tennis court. तो यहाँ पे इसमें क्या हुआ था कि इसमें राइटी लेफ्टी दोनों को equal वो disadvantage था, because if the ball goes outside of the tennis court on either side directly, you're out.
Okay.
So and the only way you don't get out is if you hit it outside straight behind you.
Right.
So what that did is, जो सीधी की हमारी सारी शॉट है ना वो perfect कर रहे थे.
Yeah.
So playing with a straight back on a consistent basis. So thankfully, actually, funnily enough, you asked me, I never thought about it from that lens. But that's perhaps what early on in my tape ball career made me play so often with a straight bat. I was a very tape ball mein, I was a big kid at my age group. Okay. Even in my age group, I was a big kid, so I was a bit of a so I used to use my strength a lot in whichever sport I played. तो टेप बॉल में भी आप जोर से मारो तो बॉल दूर जाती है. So I brought the same mentality to the hard ball. And the only unfortunate thing that happened to me was my hands hurt a lot. Because हमेशा टो एंड से लग रही है, बैट मिडल नहीं हो रहा, तो there's vibrations in my hand. तो मैं कहा ये कौन सी स्पोर्ट है? वो फिर बाद में जाके when I started playing with the academy, you're like, okay, no, you have to tailor your game differently.
Right.
यहाँ पे.
Especially the kids who are watching, you know, I think that is a very important piece.
That's correct.
You have to middle the ball.
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Power is not everything in cricket.
Not in hardball cricket.
Right.
No. It's not about power. It's about your technique, your timing, and how how close you can go and meet the ball.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things that I wish I knew when I was playing that level of cricket.
That's such an important point.
Yeah, that was
Yeah. So tell me, I know you mentioned you played for U19, U16, and beyond in Qatar. Who did you play against?
So played against there are quite a few players that I played against during the youth levels who now are prominent cricketers. So some examples that I can give to you, there was India's Unmukt was there. Hong Kong, then at that time he was a Hong Kong player, now he's a New Zealand player. Mark Chapman was there. And right now there is also Afghanistan's player Naveen-ul-Haq. So I've played with, those are examples. There's also Imam-ul-Haq, who was part of the Pakistan squad when we played the Under-19 Asia Cup in Malaysia back in 2012. And there are quite a few players that I'm not sure if they're playing right now. We played against the Sri Lankan team as well. I can't remember the names of who is playing right now and who is not, but quite a few players that are now playing international cricket. And like I said, I kind of briefly alluded to this, that Mark Chapman was one of the biggest surprises of how well he has improved his game. From the level that he played back with us in 2009 to now, to what he plays against for New Zealand, it's phenomenal, his improvement. It's
What do you think is the biggest change for that to happen for Chapman?
I think work ethic. I don't think he got to where he got to without work ethic.
You think the talent is the same?
No, in fact, the funny thing was, this is actually a really good learn for anyone that wants to develop their cricket. When you compared Mark Chapman to other cricketers at that level, he was ordinary. And this is Asia Cups, or what do you call, these are non-test playing Asian countries. So in non-test playing Asian countries, your Qatar's, Oman's, UAE's, Kuwait's, Afghanistan's, Mark Chapman is considered ordinary at that age and at that level. So for him to outperform now test playing nations batsmen, scoring centuries against Pakistan, it shows you how much he improved his game. And I don't think that happened because of talent, because talent you can see young, but overall when a cricketer becomes a professional cricketer, it's a lot of hard work that he puts in along with talent that he has.
What's your take on mentorship for Chapman or any player for that matter?
I think it's one of the most important things. Probably the most important. I told you, if I had known what I know now as a cricketer back when I was 12 or 13, I would probably be a very different player.
Yeah.
Very different player.
A couple of months ago, Manzoor Chaudhary was on the show and he said something really interesting after you mentioned this, that he said you need to have talent and you need to have the mentorship. You can't just have one or the other.
That's correct. Absolutely. 120%. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to become a good cricketer. So talent, I'll give you this example. In a non-cricketing example, talent can get you A's in high schools, but talent will not get you A's in university. Straightforward. Because in university, when you're placed around everyone that's incredibly smart, for you to outperform them, it's simply who works the hardest.
Exactly, because you're on the scale, right?
You're on that scale. That's exactly it. And that's the same thing that I would say with cricket. With cricket, it's a combination of both. Talent will get you ahead maybe at a very junior level, but as you start climbing the ranks, then it's all talent, mentorship, and your own, I'd say your own work ethic.
Yeah. Speaking of mentorship, our title sponsor, Umar Sheikh, he has been a pioneer in real estate for a long time in Calgary. And he always speaks of this as well, that you need to have a good mentorship to make sure that you go ahead.
Absolutely.
He's also a part of the cricketing community. So that's why we partnered up with him. Because it's not just about who brings in the most funds for us. It's about who fits the best with us.
That's correct.
So we do want to thank him for his support for CricChat and cricket community at large.
Thank you.
Now, coming back to the show, some of the players that you mentioned, I'm sure there are some funky stories that you may have had. Can you tell me something about? I know Imam-ul-Haq. We always hear about him on the screen. Can you tell us?
So funky, unfortunately, it's not that funky because we didn't have a chance to interact in person necessarily. But it was a very small, very short, very banterous small moment back. So we were, I think, it was a group of our players and him and a group of the Pakistani players, probably 4 or 5 of them, whatnot. And I think, so we were in Malaysia, and I think, I'm not sure, one of the guys within our group passed a comment along the size of saying, there's just too many guys over here or something of that nature. So I think he caught on to that, and we were entering the elevator together. So he's like, "Main ladkiyan la dun." That was my first impression. That's the first thing. But he said it totally as a joke, obviously.
And that's a young guy.
That's a young guy. He's like probably 17, 18. And he overhears this other conversation. And, like I said, I don't... हमारे भी सारे Pakistani Indian players थे, so they were talking Urdu and Hindi. Everyone understood what each other was saying. But that was the first. The thing is, the funny thing was, we didn't know each other, but he was what I thought was lighthearted enough and social enough to go up to a complete random group of strangers around them and just crack that with them. So I appreciated that, actually.
You got to have a little bit of humor.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's really...
So he did have that. He had that humor, and then everything I learned about afterwards, I was like, man, this adds up perfectly.
So he carried on with his personality.
He carried on with his humor, I'll tell you that much, at the very least. But
that's amazing. We love his game.
Absolutely.
No disrespect to him at all.
Absolutely.
Now, tell me some of the players who've scored big in those tournaments.
So in those tournaments, actually, what I was actually really, really surprised by in that tournament, and so in that Asia Cup, the under-19 one in Malaysia in 2012, and then following after that in 2013 and 14, there was the under-19 Cricket World Cup. Both tournaments, Unmukt scored exceptionally for India. Absolutely exceptionally for India. He won India actually both of those tournaments, if I'm not wrong. He won them the World Cup for sure. I don't remember who won the Asia Cup right now, but he was an outstanding performer. And then what's equally shocking is he never really played well at the senior level. And I'm not sure what you want to attribute that to, but he was at that point in time a very upcoming player. The other player that I saw, he became pretty good as well, was Soumiya Sarkar. He smashed a double century against us. And so if you look at that scorecard of us against Bangladesh scored, I think, 330, 340 in our 50 overs. He scored 200. One other guy got into double figures. That's it. No one else even got into double figures. So I was like, well, if it wasn't for him, maybe we had a chance. We got all out for 40. Wo baki, wo different kahani hai. But Soumiya Sarkar, then he did play a little bit well for Bangladesh's senior team as well.
Oh, yeah,
but again, so those are a couple of players that actually went on. But like I said, no one rivals what Mark Chapman did.
Any stories with Afghanistan's bowlers or anything like that?
I love how you take that. Ab mujhe yaad hai. Achha, this actually happened. I remember this clear as day. This was the under-19 Elite Cup in Thailand in 2011. ठीक है? Or is in the under-19 Elite Cup. Sorry, not in sorry. I apologize. It's the under-16. This is the under-16 Asia Cup. So we're all 16 and younger. I'm 16, so I'm playing right at the top of my level. This was in 2012, and बाकी जितने मेरे players थे 15, 14, 13 साल की उम्र के थे. At the under-16 level, I remember batting on the non-strikers end, and right in front of me was another batsman of mine, and he's talking to the keeper about something, and it seems like a normal, friendly conversation, nothing more. So after the over's finished, I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" And he asked me about my age. I was like, "What'd you tell him?" He's like, "I'm 14." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Why? What did you say?" He's like, and he says it, my batsman, the batsman, he says it to me in the accent, ठीक है, जैसे पठानों का accent होता है, ठीक है. उसने कहा है कि यार उसने तो मुझे बोला मेरा बच्चा तुम्हारी उम्र क्या है. So I don't know what the keeper was trying to do, whether he was trying to get under his skin or what we're under 16, so I don't know what he's talking about. at this point. So this was the one thing that I actually now, especially when you mentioned Afghanistan, that's what I do remember. Now, when I look at him, clean shave, 16-year-old, beard, 40-year-old. So I don't know. But I do remember that we had a good laugh about it. Nothing out of the ordinary.
No, that kind of connects when you said you always were that older, or like you look like the older kid in your group.
That's
right?
correct.
And some kids are.
Absolutely.
Look at Shaq, right?
Absolutely. I'll tell you though, I've never joked about having a 15-year-old. I'll tell you that much at the very least. But I mean, hey, it was good banter.
That's funny. That's funny. And any stories about you playing one of their bowlers where you ended up smashing them or anything like that?
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, so I had fun against, I actually had a lot of fun. The most fun I had in that tournament, it was a very short-lived amount of fun, but so Naveen-ul-Haq, who right now is one of Afghanistan's fast bowlers, he plays a lot of IPL cricket as well, and he bowls really, really well. He was, I believe, 3 or 4 years, he was around 13 or 14 at that time. 14, sorry, around that time. But even then, his build was good, and he was actually the fastest bowler at that in that tournament, and I believe he actually took Bowler of the Tournament award as well. He was bowling really fast at that level, and the thing is when you're a fast bowler playing against non-test playing nations at a junior level, which is below 16, a fast bowler scares people. Period. Kids get scared of a very fast hard ball coming at them. So our game against Afghanistan was the last game of the tournament. Tab tak, I think he probably had injured 3 or 4 batsmen already by bowling Yorkers on them, by bowling bouncers on them, because they just were not equipped to deal with the pace that he was bowling at, period. He was the fastest bowler there. And so he had the same mentality. And now I know I've been watching his game, and I know that I'm comfortable playing fast bowlers. I've been, when I played the under 19 level, I was an opener. At the under 16 level, I pushed myself down a little bit, but just to play against Afghanistan, you know what? I put myself as an opener. I was like, you know what? I want to play against this guy because he's going to do 2 things. He either wants to bowl a Yorker to you, or he wants to bowl a bouncer. There's nothing else he wants to bowl to you, especially at that level. So I was already mentally prepared about what was going on, and he historically throughout every game of the tournament had bowled at least 6 to 8 overs in his first spell. Because the other batsmen were just, he'd rip through the top or the middle order, especially jab log darte the. So I was like, oh, let's see how this goes. And I think same thing. He would either bowl a fantastic Yorker or an over-pitch delivery or a full toss. Any over-pitch delivery and full toss, it's going to the boundary. And it went to the boundary a couple of times. So after 2 overs, they had him completely off. He was shocked. He was confused. He's like, how the hell am I going off after only 2 overs? He bowled a bouncer. It was really quick. I tried to take it on, but missed my head by a couple of inches. Nothing more than that. But that was actually probably those 2 overs that I faced of him was probably the most fun I had in that tournament because the anticipation is there. A lot of people are like, oh my goodness, how is he going to play? And on the other side, unfortunately, the other batsman was on my side. He couldn't play him either. वो बेचारा डरा हुआ था दूसरे एंड पे. तो वो कहता तुम रखो स्ट्राइकर्स के साथ. ठीक है, रख लेने कोई मसला नहीं है.
And sometimes it's not your day. कभी-कभी क्या होता है, you do that, right? Like players जो होते हैं opening में especially, hey, you know what, तुम इस player को खेलो, मैं उस player को खेलूंगा.
That's correct.
It happens.
Absolutely.
It happens, especially.
ये तो अभी भी करते हैं.
Yeah.
अभी भी हम जब बैटिंग करते हैं तो एक लेफ्टी राइटी कॉम्बिनेशन चल रहा होता है. ऑफ स्पिनर होता है, लेग स्पिनर होता है. कहता है तुम इसे मारो, you play easily this one, and that's just adapting your.
Game.
That's the game. You have to adapt to your.
You have to use your head.
That's correct. You have to adapt to the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why, a lot of our Calgary legends, they say, cricket जो है पहलवानों की game नहीं है. So
of course.
You need to use your head to do that. Now, let's switch gears and I want to talk to you about local cricket here in Calgary. आपने कतर में cricket खेली, यहाँ पे भी खेली. Obviously, there's a massive difference in. Apart from the weather, what changes do you see?
What changes do I see from, well, I think a couple of things from Calgary to Doha's cricket. Doha does have a couple of turf pitches. So those players that are often shortlisted for training camps get to play on proper turf wickets over there, which is very different to the mat wickets that we have over here. So that's one very big difference I have definitely observed. Outside of that, I would say that the number of ex-domestic players are more in Canada, in Calgary, than I have seen in Doha. And Doha had a lot of domestic players as well, but not the level of our amount that I've seen in Canada and in Calgary at least. So I would say that there was a good level of cricket. There's a good level of cricket in both places. I think the one place where, unfortunately, what put Qatar a little bit short was that Qatar had really, really good youth level sports, under 16, under 17, under 19. Like I said, to the under 19, we were third out of all non-test playing nations. But then what happened is a lot of their good players, the under 19 level, would then leave the country for studies and universities and all that. Like our entire 19 team, about 80% of it left. And so the national players are pretty much just comprised of people who stayed along with people that are playing. So it's not really bringing it up the youth level and then going on to play for your senior team, which I think is very important if you want to have a good senior team.
Yeah.
The grassroots level cricket.
I know you mentioned something about कि यहाँ पे ज़्यादा domestic cricketers हैं जो दूसरी country से आते हैं. And I do want to acknowledge the fact CanAsia is one of the first teams who introduced this culture.
Right.
CCA is doing that as well, and a couple of other teams. United did a fair bit, and some of the other teams. But I think CanAsia started this whole culture of importing some of the players.
Right.
And now we're seeing more of that.
Right. And to be honest, I think it's great for cricket.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic because the amount that you get to learn from people like that is phenomenal.
Yeah, and also with like these domestic tournaments that we have.
That's correct. That's correct.
With some of the smash and grabs, and not just in Calgary, but in others part of the country. That's also bringing in some of the cricketers around the world.
Absolutely. When you bring talent in like that, absolutely. When you bring talent in like that, it obviously attracts a lot of people. And it not only that, but it also what I find when you bring a good quality or batch or group of cricketers, it increases the what I call hunger for competition between others as well. Like, oh, this player has played this level. Let me show you what I can do.
Yeah.
So I find that it increases the drive, which is always good for the sport. 100%.
And now tell me what's happening in CanAsia.
Good question. I myself
for 2025.
Don't know. So I think I kind of what I had mentioned, CanAsia, I think 2 years ago was bought out by a new team, by a new gentleman, and I think during that transfer of ownership, quite a few players had left, but they had left because some had family obligations to go back to Pakistan. To some people, one or two wanted to go to other teams, and so there was just a fragmentation. You have changes in leadership, and not necessarily everyone's comfortable with that because you've been playing a certain level of cricket or way. So that kind of happened in about, I'd say 75. Actually, I'd say if I look back at it, I'm probably maybe me or maybe one other person is the only people that are actually in CanAsia that are part of the team that won both the 2020 and the 50 overs about 3 years ago. There are quite a few youngsters in the CanAsia team, and I always, I always like to think about myself when I was a youngster. I always wanted to have someone to be mentoring me around as well, because if I didn't have someone to be mentoring me around, I didn't really want to play for that team either. So I kind of have that element as well that I'd like to continue moving forward with. So it's fun, it's peaceful. And that to me is what's most important.
The politics come है कि ज़्यादा है?
No, not at all right now. No,
not a lot.
Not
it's
right
reduced.
Now. Right now it's reduced.
So it's a good change. Welcome change.
Well, it's good. I mean, even then, like I said, even back when we played, there was not a lot of politics. I mean, that's actually why I moved to CanAsia the first time when I moved. So I was called over by Saad Khan at that point in time. And I think under him and Naveed Bhai's leadership, phenomenal. I mean, obviously, when you have 11 guys who are fantastic cricketers, you're always going to have differences in opinion. You're always going to have emotional outbursts. You're always going to have, that's going to be part of the game.
Because you're passionate about the game.
Absolutely, you're passionate about the game. But I think both Saad Bhai and Naveed Bhai did a good job at maintaining a certain level of decorum. Always talk to people about, I think the most important thing when I select a team is the environment, the sportsmanship spirit within the team. I think that is more important to me than winning. Period.
I think it's such an important point that you bring up, especially after what some of the things that transpired over the past few weeks. I think it's time for us to stay together and move our league and cricket in Calgary and beyond forward. Because there is a little bit of divide right now that we are experiencing. And if we're not going to be together, we're going to struggle.
Elaborate on the divide.
So the divide portion is how CNDCL is struggling with its own battles. And then there's a couple of other leagues that formed. Now, that's having more leagues or having more cricket is great. But if we have a bit of divide in a sense that some players or some leagues are not going to be able to have their representation at the higher level, that's gonna always cause some problems for the younger.
Of course, it's bad for
generation.
cricket. It's bad for cricket, and like I said, if it's bad for cricket at the end of the day. If you were going to exclude people based on no basis of their ability to play a sport, just because they're playing in one league over the other, then I'm sorry, but that's just corrupt. Period. You can't do that. You can't say I'm a fair person and then say I'm going to have favoritism towards one player from one league versus one player in another league. Now, like I said, if that league is legally caught with some kind of wrongdoing, and then you choose to exclude them, that's perfectly rational, no problem. That happens in every sport. But if a league is not found guilty of any wrongdoing and then you deliberately excluded, then that kind of favoritism, unfortunately, is what destroys a sport.
So what does that, I know you kind of touched on this, but what does that do to the competition of the league or the city or province?
I think it's the real answer to what that does is you ask yourself, if you have a fantastic group of players but a terrible leader, what does that do to the team?
Nothing.
You don't use the potential of the team. Period. What's the job of think of any executive in any league or whatnot. What's the job of a leader? The job of a leader is to take the talent that I have and to put the best in my basket and then direct them towards a goal. Right? That's the job of a leader. But if the leader doesn't direct them towards the right goal or doesn't pick the right talent, then you're wasting the potential that you have. But that's unfortunately what's going to happen. And then that in turn is going to demotivate and discourage younger generations from wanting to climb up the ranks. Absolutely. Like, I think if you have a system where everyone knows, no matter what league I play for, I have an equal chance of potentially representing the city or the province, for example, you would see a much higher level of competition and engagement than what you currently see.
Thank you all for watching CricChat powered by Umar-Sheikh. And have a fantastic day. Don't forget to like and comment, as well as subscribe to our channels so you could win another giveaway that is coming up. More details to follow. Thank you.
Thanks, Samir Bhai. Watch your GM.